So, it's been a super busy Sunday for election issues, as you can hear. Let's bring in our political panel tonight. In one corner, this corner, New South Wales Liberal Senator Holly Hughes, and in the other, from our studio in Brisbane, Liberal Democrat Senate candidate for Queensland, Campbell Newman. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much for your time. Now, those...
Chris.
Good to have you, Campbell.
Nice to see you, Campbell.
Are you friends, by the way? Should I ask?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, bosom buddies.
I wouldn't go bosom buddies. Some of us stick with the lips.
Now, those doing...
But I was part of the original cheer squad.
You would have been. Now, those doing the heavy lifting for isolated Labor leader Anthony Albanese have confused the hell out of me today. On one hand, Labor Senator Penny Wong today said that Australian companies would not be disadvantaged by their climate change policy, so coal mines would not pay for carbon credits in their safeguard mechanism if the company exceeds their CO2 output. I call that a carbon tax, by the way. But their energy spokesman, Chris Bowen, says today coal mines would come under the safeguard mechanism. Holly, as we found out last week, Richard Marles doesn't know. So you've got three who are left holding the house together as Albo has time off in ISO, who can't work out what the most crucial aspect of their climate change policy is.
Look, absolutely. I have a feeling Campbell and I are going to be on a unity ticket here with this tonight. It is absolutely incredible between Richard Marles, Jim Chalmers, Penny Wong and Chris Bowen. We have had 4 different answers. These guys cannot tell us exactly what's happening. We've got some saying coal mines are exempt, some saying coal mines are included. They don't know what the price of a carbon credit's going to be. It is absolutely extraordinary, something that is one of their key platforms as they align themselves with the teal independents, as they suck up to Climate 200, as they keep themselves aligned with the Greens, ready to form that Albanese-backed government.
Of all the policies to stuff up.
I mean, if you can tell me what they're talking about, I don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about, and I'm pretty sure Campbell doesn't know what they're talking about, but I can tell you what we do know. They're going to kill jobs in the Hunter. They're going to kill jobs in far north Queensland, and that's what they're focused on.
Yeah, they're leaving it open, Campbell. That tells me it could happen.
Well, look, the trouble with net zero period is that it is actually going to really be bad for Australia, and there's no doubt about that. And the trouble with net zero for people talking about, and I'm sorry that the Coalition have gone somewhere down that road as well, but let's face it, Labor are far worse, is the world's changed. You were talking about the Ukraine before. The whole energy framework of the globe has now changed, and Germany has handed, as we've all seen, has handed their head on a plate by shutting down brown coal power, shutting down nuclear and relying on Russian gas. And you will see European countries, as quick as they can, ensuring they have energy supply security. And people who are rabbiting on still about net zero, like the Labor Party, with this totally confused schmozzle, are really behind the game. And sensible Australians who want real leadership will see that, well, if you're not going to vote for the Lib Dems, do vote for the Coalition. And I would actually predict that in the Hunter, the Coalition actually might pick it up.
Oh, mate, I am very much planning on turning Shortland blue.
You know?
Shortland needs to go blue.
Crazy.
We've got Pat Conroy from the far left of the Labor Party in a Hunter Valley seat. I mean, it is outrageous how this guy is there.
And this weekend in particular, with 3 different MPs saying 3 different things, it said...
Well, it's 4. It's 4. It's Chalmers, Marles, Wong and Bowen. It is 4 of them that do not know. And Albo... can't even do a Zoom call on it.
Yeah, we'll wait until Albo gets back because he'll be asked that 1,000 times. Meanwhile, Labor says today it's got the answer to preventing China from, I guess, seducing Indo-Pacific nations like they've done with the Solomon Islands. They'll increase foreign aid and send more diplomats to the region. Now, I think we provide the Solomons with 2/3 of their foreign aid already. Is any of that going to make a difference, do you think?
I think one of the things that's lost in this discussion is the fact that the Solomon Islands and all of our Pacific neighbours are actually sovereign countries. So they have the ability to make their own decisions. The difference between us and Labor, when you look at us and Richard Marles was out there encouraging the Solomon Islands to facilitate their relationship with China. We were never doing that. The Labor Party was encouraging China to have more to do with the Pacific regions, not what we were doing. We have certainly supported the entire Pacific Islands, including the Solomons, and particularly when it came to COVID, we supplied the bulk of the vaccines, if not the entirety of the vaccines, so their countries were able to reopen, and particularly countries like Fiji, 100% reliant on tourism as their main market.
I'm going to talk to someone very shortly who is convinced that big, fat, brown paper bags played a role in what's going on in the Solomon Islands, because how could you not be loyal to Australia?
Well, Labor Party's around, they were probably Aldi bags.
Chris, the thing about this one, though, that's quite interesting is it goes back a long, long way. So Prime Minister Sogavare is now in his fourth term. If you go back to 2006, not to go into all the details, but he expelled the Australian High Commissioner back in September of that year, in 2006. And there was a thing called the Julian Motti affair. A gentleman has since passed away, but the Australian chief of police in the Solomons at the time, and that was the Ramsay Intervention Force, actually oversaw a raid into the Prime Minister's office over this Motti affair. So I'm afraid we've got a big problem here, because Mr Sogavare doesn't like us very much as a country, sees us as sort of neo-colonialists. And this has been going for a long, long time.
So Campbell, let me ask you this. I saw the Prime Minister today in Alice Springs, and he said in a press conference, he said that there would be no Chinese naval base in the Solomon Islands. This is part of what he had to say.
Yeah.
We won't be having Chinese military naval bases in our region on our doorstep.
What do you do to stop it? A blockade?
Well, let me first be clear that Prime Minister Sogavare has been very clear to me, saying there will be no such bases. So that is what he has said. And so he clearly shares our red line.
Does our Prime Minister deserve to have faith in what their Prime Minister has told him?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Chris. It's just this goes back a long way, and the PM of the Solomon Islands, I think, doesn't like Australia very much. And he's got his grievances, who knows where it started, but that literal view of our country has been there festering away for a long time. And the point I wanted to make was there was a Labor government here from 2007 through to 2013, and they had every opportunity as well as the coalition to do whatever needed to be done. As I said, this bloke has been PM now. This is his fourth term. He's had a number of goes, and we all should have been building bridges. I don't know how the PM could be so confident, by the way.
Yeah, I can't understand it either. I want to move on to another issue, and I know you saw this today, and I saw it myself, and I'm as equally confused as I am with the 4 Labor MPs who don't know their climate change policy. I'm confused about the Defence Minister ramping up this Kharkiv election by warning that Australia should prepare for a chemical attack on one of our allies. Now, what was he referring to in terms of that? Was he referring to China v another Pacific island, or was it Ukrainian? Or I don't get it.
Look, I've got to tell you, Chris, it's probably a little bit above my pay grade to know exactly what he was referring to. But I think we have seen, even over the last couple of years, when you look at what's been unleashed on the world in the form of a pandemic and where people think that may or may not have originated from, we've certainly seen the impact that these sorts of conditions can have on global economies and countries and their sovereignty and the way that they shut themselves down
North
to try
Africa,
and deal with
Sri
it.
Lanka, classic examples.
Look, I mean, the whole world, if you look at COVID, has experienced a challenge over and above what any of us, I think, thought we would ever experience in our lifetime. So there are serious threats here, and I think that's why when you look at who do you want leading this country going into what can be a very uncertain time? Do you want a hung parliament full of unknown independents and who they're going to back and who they're not going to back? A Labor Greens alliance who, after the last Labor government, we saw GDP defence spending drop to 1.56 versus us over 2% and increasing. Who do you want in charge of running a serious defence portfolio versus someone whose alleged defence minister passes their speeches through China just to make sure they're not going to upset them too much?
Campbell, Newman, I know you're not a fan of the chairman in Victoria, but I was interested to see that he's waited 2 weeks to get stuck into the Morrison government during this election campaign.
Yeah.
He actually said that the government was being cruel, arguing its point over transgender sportswomen not being allowed to compete. What are your thoughts on that? Not necessarily the whole argument, but what are your thoughts on Dan getting his nose in this?
Well, it's typical of him, isn't it? You know, that's exactly what he would do, because he's into politicising everything and also using the politics of denigration in the language that he uses. I mean, let's just look at it this way. This issue has not just been championed by politicians, we heard from Jacinta before, but it's also been championed by leaders in women's sport and women across the board, around our country. So what about the women's point of view? How about we listen to them? This is about actually making sure that women's sport is fair and safe. And I think that's where we're going to take our lead. So perhaps the Premier should get back to repairing Victoria after the terrible economic carnage he's caused and the mental health problems he's also created through his overreaction to COVID.
Yeah, maybe state premiers should stick to their box, but that doesn't include former state premiers wanting to go into federal parliament, right?
No, not at all, mate. Absolutely.
You know what though, Campbell? I'm on a full unity ticket with you when it comes to Dan.
Yeah. Good luck, Campbell. Good to talk with you.
Thank you.
There you go,
Thanks so
Campbell
much.
Newman. Holly Hughes, thank you
See
very
you,
much.
Campbell. Thanks, Chris.
All the best.